Welcome to Fun with Annuities with your host, me, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent. Can annuities be fun? Can contractual guarantees be fun? Absolutely they can. Find out the brutal facts about annuities with no sales pitches or high-pressure nonsense. Just the brutal and factual annuity truth, which is all you need to hear. Let's have some fun with annuities, and let's have that fun start right now. Welcome to Fun with Annuities, the #1 annuity podcast on the planet. I'm your host, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent, licensed in all 50 states. Today, we have a special guest with us. It's Dennis Miller. He has a very good newsletter called Miller on the Money that I encourage everyone listening to, my clients, anybody that's wanting to be a client, anyone that stumbled across this podcast. Please go to his site at milleronthemoney.com and sign up. It is a free, I repeat, free newsletter, and he's been writing and helping since 2015. I want to welcome everybody on all the podcast platforms like iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and all those, and also the people that are watching this video portion, and we film these as well, on the Fun with Annuities YouTube channel. And again, I also have a YouTube channel called Stan the Annuity Man for all things annuity. Now, a little bit about Dennis, and then I'm going to let him go and talk about a lot of things. He was a writer for Casey Research. He's really knows his stuff. Both him and I were what's called retire mentors. We wrote for Market Watch, and they called all of us people that were contributing at that point in time retire mentors. He's just a very smart guy. The good part about Dennis is he's not an advisor. He just has it in his heart and has a passion for helping people in retirement, shooting it straight. So there's really no agendas. I mean, his newsletter is free. Why wouldn't you sign up? I mean, for goodness sakes. Now, we're going to go through a lot of things, and a lot of things aren't going to be about annuities. Now, Dennis does understand the value of annuities and where they fit in a portfolio for lifetime income, like an immediate annuity, or if you want to peel off interest with like a multi-year guarantee annuity. But with that being said, let me just introduce and welcome to the Fun with Annuities podcast, Dennis Miller. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you, Stan, for inviting me. I appreciate the introduction. Now I got to live up to it, but thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, let's jump right in on a couple of things. You have a great article that's getting ready to post on your website and on your newsletter on how good is your comfortable retirement guarantee. And I want to dig into that. And if you don't sign up for his free newsletter for that, I don't know what you're doing here. But I want to start with some fun stuff. You have a saying that you use called ROMEO, ROMEO. And I laughed when I read it because tell people what ROMEO is and how that affects how you write and how it influences you.
Well, that's interesting you should ask that, Stan, because I retired in 2005. And bluntly, I thought I was set for life. I put a certain percentage of my portfolio into fixed income, guaranteed income.
And what does that mean to you? Let's stop right there. In your world back then, that was CDs and peeling off interest, correct?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Stan, I did something I chided my father for because I saw my father and my mother invest heavily in CDs. They were getting ready to retire, and they went into the Carter years.
Yeah.
Okay? And their money was guaranteed, but by the time their CDs matured, inflation ate away 25% of their buying power.
Yeah,
so here I am, 65 years old, doing what I chided my father for, in that I put the bulk of our investments into CDs, guaranteed, so that I knew I would have enough money to pay the bills. And then I put a portion of our portfolio into the market to hedge against inflation. And Stan, for 3 years, it worked like a charm. We were actually at the end of the year, we lived a good year.
What were your CDs yielding? What was the average, just ballpark of the yield back then?
Oh, no,
Jimmy 6%. Carter CDs.
Solid 6%.
6%.
Now,
wow.
onto the ROMEO. All of a sudden, in 2008, I log into my brokerage account, And I'm not joking when I say there was a whole bunch of cash there. And where the heck did this cash? I said to my wife, did you win the lottery and not tell me? Where the heck did this money come from? And then it got to be very unfunny because I realized that was the day they passed, or the day after they passed the bank bailout bill. And literally all of my CDs got called in.
Yep.
Now, I didn't lose a dime,
Yep.
but I lost my theoretical guaranteed income. And so I start looking for CDs, and basically they dropped from 6% to 2%.
Right.
So I took a 66% income cut. Now, Stan, let me tie this to Romeo's. Romeo stands for retired old men eating out. Okay. And I was a retired old
Wait a
man.
minute. So women would be ROMEO, right? Retired old women.
I don't know.
eating out.
They had a Juliet, just us ladies.
Oh,
Something.
okay.
They had their own acronym.
Got it. Okay, so tell me about the ROMEO. How does that play in?
Well, it wasn't a few days later, I go off to our Romeo breakfast, which was every 2 weeks. And that was the subject that everybody was talking about. Now, we ended up in 3 different groups. One group had government retirement plans. So the bank bailouts, no big deal. They still got paid the same anyway.
Yes, sure.
The second group was folks like me who had our money in CDs and bonds. They got their bonds or CDs redeemed, so they didn't lose anything. But they're saying, my God, how am I going to replace the income? And sad to say, the third group was people that were heavily invested in the market. They were still not investing for dividend income. They were investing for growth.
Right.
And one of the guys half jokingly said, my 401k just turned into a 201k. And Stan, he's still working today, and I'm 80 years old. I was 68 at the time. It's very, very sad. So that was the 3 groups. So I joined a bunch of these newsletters because now I'm trying to figure out how am I going to invest this money to replace this theoretical guaranteed income. And I started writing to them, and I said, you guys aren't getting it. You don't get the problem that middle-class America has. And I started writing Casey Research, which was where I ended up meeting you. And they wrote back and said, you're right. We want you to start writing a newsletter addressed to middle America, because the wealthy people, they can afford, and I'm talking multimillionaires now.
Sure.
The wealthy people can afford financial planners, and they can pay them to help them. But you have this huge middle class. And Stan, our Romeo guys, they were ex-vice presidents of major corporations. Right. They were very successful people. And all of a sudden now, there was no set it and forget it like we thought we had with the CDs. And I remember at breakfast, one of them said, I don't care how we made our money, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, whatever. We're all money managers now, and our job is to make sure that our money lasts throughout our retirement. So I started writing for Casey Research, and then you and I got involved with Market Watch, writing as retire mentors.
Right.
And I told Casey Research, I'm not a stock picker. That's, I understand.
Let me stop you right there. I think that's real important. Dennis does not give advice. I mean, he's not going to put together your portfolio, but what he does provide are details and facts. And the reason he's on the podcast with me is he's 100% factual, and there are no agendas. I want to kind of, since our time is limited, I kind of want to pivot a little bit and get your comments on a couple subjects, and then maybe we can go back to the article or the post that's coming out on your newsletter about retirement guarantees, etc. Give me your insight right now, because I know you're a follower of this. Tell me where things land with you and what you're telling your readers about interest rates right now, because, as I tell people, they're at perceived lows when you look at Jimmy Carter yield from a long time ago. But if you look at 10-year Treasury equivalents across the globe, we're still pretty high. What are you telling your readers right now other than, oh my goodness, I wish they were higher? No.
Yesterday,
take that down. No one's going to see that at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
understand. No,
go to his site and go to a Miller on the Money to, he just held something up to the camera, and of course the camera spit that out. So give us your
no.
opinion on interest rates.
Well, my opinion on interest rates are that they are so low now. I mean, literally, I was showing the camera yesterday. I ran something off about bonds and CD interest rates. If you want to buy a 5-year CD now, you'll get 0.9% interest.
And by the way, hold that thought real quick. The sister product for annuities, the multi-year guarantee annuity, the CD, their CD alternative in the annuity industry, you can get 3% on 5 years. You can get 2.25% on 3 years. So the annuity industry has their own CD product. So if you're a CD buyer, you might want to go to my site and look at the live rates, theannuityman.com. We have a listing of all carriers with live rates. So keep going on those rates, because I do want people to know there are alternatives to CDs that work just like them.
10-year treasuries, 1.66. Now, Stan, you asked what I'm telling my readers.
Yep.
I'm saying there are no safe fixed income products today that I would ever buy myself, other than very short term to hold cash, that are going to beat inflation. So if you want to lose money, go buy a 10-year CD.
Let's talk about inflation. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, because I'm introducing you to multi-year guarantee annuities, which are the annuity industry version of a CD. And if you can get 3%, I don't know what your idea on inflation is, but we are raising money by the millions and millions for people that can't buy the CD at 0.9, but want to buy a multi-year guarantee annuity at 3% or 2.25%. But tell me about inflation. You threw out inflation. Tell me what you think that really is. What is that percentage to you?
Well, the percentage for inflation, you get all these pundits saying it's 2%, and they do all the technical math and the government stuff. Inflation is a very personal thing, okay?
I agree.
With me being close to 81 years old, the cost of medical care has skyrocketed. So for me, my inflation would be higher than somebody that's younger. However, I like what you just said, but tying it back to the article that you mentioned, where we talked about how good is your retirement income guarantee? Because what I'm telling my readers is I took annuities, CDs, bonds, dividend paying stocks, preferred dividend paying stocks, and I sliced every one of those as to what was really guaranteed. And one of the guarantees is, are they guaranteed to beat inflation? And what I'm telling my readers today is, if you're going to survive as a retiree and make your money last, you've got to diversify and combine them. And I think I even put a line in the article where I said, people like the guaranteed income from an annuity.
And let's stop right there. Let me clarify for people. There's two types of ways to get income from an annuity, and there's 7 different primary annuity types. We talked about the multi-year guarantee annuity, which is the annuity industry version of a CD. You can peel off that interest and never touch the principal. But there are the unique benefit proposition on 4 different types of annuities that can provide a lifetime income as long as you're breathing. That is unique to the annuity world. So the question is for people out there, your readers, my listeners, is how do you want to take income? Do you want to protect the principal and peel off the interest? If you do that, we know where interest rates are.
Well,
or do you want a lifetime income stream, whether it's with yourself or joint life? That's a completely separate strategy, and there's no way to figure out ROI until you die. So with that being said, go from there.
Well, here's what I want as a retiree. I want to know that money's coming in, regardless of what happens in the stock market, regardless of what happens. And let me throw a caveat into that, because something happened to me recently, which, again, too many of us assume guarantees. And let me give you an example. We get Social Security, which I know you have said many times is one of the best annuities on the planet.
It is.
Everybody assumes their Social Security is guaranteed. And it's interesting because my wife had part interest in a family farm, been in the family for 100 years, and they sold it in 2019. Well, they had a nice capital gains, but honestly, Stan, we can't take the proceeds and invest it and earn nearly what she was getting from the farm. Lo and behold, I get a notice and she gets a notice. Our Social Security has been dropped by $9,000 this year.
Because?
Well, oh, no. Social Security hasn't been dropped. Your Social Security benefits are the same, but they raised our Medicare premiums $9,000. So here I am thinking I had guaranteed, I could always count on that deposit every month being the same amount for Social Security. Baloney. I said to my wife, if we had money invested in an annuity, they are contractually obligated to pay me that every month, where, as we know now, the Social Security, the government's changing it all the time. So when I'm talking guaranteed, I'm talking about that is the one part of your retirement plan that you know you can count on, bluntly, come hell or high water.
Yeah, and annuities are transfer risk products. You're transferring the risk to the annuity company to either provide a lifetime income stream or protect the principal and peel off the interest. Let me ask you a question about Social Security. Do you think in the near future that will be means tested, changed, altered? Because in the current path that we're going, where we're printing money and using as much toner as humanly possible to print it, what do you think, what's your prediction down the road for Social Security? And people that are already getting it, do you think they'll be grandfathered in and nothing's going to happen? What's your take on that? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think you're asking a good question. Yes, when you take a look at the numbers, it's impossible for the government to keep the promises. Now, they're going to try to grandfather in people that already have it. But Stan, you've educated me that you've used that term contractually guaranteed.
Yes.
So if an annuity company wants to change my benefits, I can take them to court.
Absolutely. Okay? Without a doubt.
If Social Security wants to raise my Medicare premiums, okay, I'm screwed. So that I believe, and there have been proposals in the past where they wanted to means test it, okay, and now they're talking about a wealth tax and other things. So I'm telling my readers that yes, you should plan for Social Security in some form, but when you're running the numbers, it's not a solid number. I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah, and I think that, and people always say, well, I doubt if they're going to mess with Social Security because, you know, those people vote and that's a voting block, you know, with 10,000 baby boomers reaching the age of 65 every single day. Some of them retired, some of them not retired, but all of them thinking about retirement, right? Yeah. You know, that's a voting block they want to mess with. But I do think they will mess with what they perceive, the politicians perceive and define as rich. And unfortunately, a lot of our listeners and viewers are probably going to fall into the rich category and they don't even know they're rich. I mean, they've just penny pitched and saved and worked hard and done without and done the right thing. My fear is they're going to punish that if they're not already doing that. They're going to punish it even more because politicians, in my opinion, look at everything as a voting block, and rich people are a small voting block. In my opinion, that's where I think it's going to go. Let me pivot and get your opinion on the markets right now. Now we're in raising bull market territory. There are things that are out there like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain strategies. I did a podcast on that recently with an expert in that. But these are weird times. Even you can admit that, having watched this for decades and decades and decades. What are you telling your readers about current market environment and valuations at this point? Don't they seem high?
Yes, they are. Stan, I want to address one real quick point about you and the government definition of rich. They have a history of doing that. When Bill Clinton passed what was the biggest tax increase in the history of man, it was to tax the rich. And I took an article out of the Wall Street Journal and sent it to my children. When you looked at the tax rates while they were blaring it as rich, the Wall Street Journal looked into it, and rich was defined, and this is back in the Clinton years, as a married couple with combined gross income of $75,000 or more. I sent that to my children. I said, they're not going after dad. They're going after you with kids and mortgage payment. Yeah. So that you have the rhetoric versus the reality of the rates. And what we're going to see is the rhetoric, but then when you start looking at the rates, it comes out something different. Now, onto the market. You
Yeah.
know, for 10 years, we've been sitting there, you know, they were going to have one bailout to end all bailouts in 2008. Now
Right.
we've had two of them in the last 12 months and the third one going. So all of this has been pumping up the stock market. So a lot of pundits, myself included, are saying this cannot go on forever. I mean, look at history. The problem is investors don't have any place else to go like they used to. It used to be
Right.
that if the stock market got high, you'd go to bonds and CDs.
Right.
Okay, that's off the table now. Yes, annuities can certainly help. So that the real issue is when you diversify and put together a portfolio, you hedge your bets. You have some preferred stocks. You're looking for dividend income
Mm-hmm.
stocks as opposed to those that are up 200% this year, but you want them to go up 200% next year. So I'm not investing for appreciation. Whatever I get is a bonus. I want to buy stocks in solid companies that are sending me dividends every quarter that aren't likely to fold if the business turns down. And I've got some preferred stocks that I've been in that I'm very comfortable with. But again, you don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you do, you're taking huge risk.
Let me get your opinion on this. And I don't know if a lot of our readers and listeners, your readers, my listeners and viewers understand this, but I read an article recently that over 85% of all trades in the market are non-human. They're algorithmic, black box, high velocity trades, computers fighting against computers 24/7, 365, and us peons get to go in and play from 9:30 to 4.
Sure.
The next downturn, and me and you have been around long enough to see multiple downturns. I mean, I always tell people there's a lot of advisors out there that I have cowboy boots older than they are, and they've never seen anything go down.
Yeah.
So everything is a dart throw for them. How do you think on the next hiccup downturn event, have you given thought to just the fact that it's not traders on the floor anymore? It's 85% is computer driven algorithm. How is
Yes.
that going to play out?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I read some stuff recently, and I'm thinking I wrote a little bit about it. And that, you know, they have theoretically the plunge protection team, so that the downward thing spiral starts and it goes like straight down. Theoretically, they have stops that they can put in to stop the computer trading. And I read a couple of pundits lately that says it's going to overwhelm the plunge protection
Correct.
team. I mean,
Correct.
eventually they're going to have to open that market back up.
Correct.
So I'm, you know, and that's part of the problem. You know, I'm a believer in stop losses on certain stocks.
It'll blow through those stop losses. You and I both
Well,
know it.
the problem is going to be when the market shuts down, you may not
Right.
have hit your stop loss.
Right.
When it opens up the next day, you're $100 below your stop loss. And now what are you going to do? In other words, it will do just what you said. It'll blow right through that stop loss.
And what's interesting about the whole thing is, you know, we in 2008 we all had the comments from people that said, "Well, I'm never going to forget this. This left a scar, Stan. I'm never going to forget this." We're back. We're back once again at all-time highs, and I don't even think the true leverage of some of the derivatives and some of the alternative products out there that's happening. I don't even think that can be calculated. I've read numbers that are just astronomical and so high you can't even get your arms around, like 60 trillion or some nonsense like that.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on it, but I've heard that. And then the other thing that I think is interesting, I liked your comment on family offices have kind of taken the place of hedge funds. And the reason family offices have taken the place of hedge funds is family offices, as of the time of this taping, they don't have to follow the regulations, procedures, and withhold and being transparent on their holdings like a hedge fund or a brokerage firm has to. So now all of the talent or whatever, or the speculators, are in family offices. The guy from Archegos that just lost $20 billion in 2 days, that was a family office. What's your thought on that? And have you alerted your readers to what's happening differently this time?
Yeah, I have, but Stan, I have to go back to day one. Once you get retired, You're not buying stock that's on margin. You're not going into hedge funds.
No, now stop for a second. You're assuming that. You're assuming and
Well,
hoping that you're right. But you and I both know that greed is overpowering. And there's a lot of people that are long and doing more and exposing themselves to more risk in these markets because it's that FOMO, fear of missing out. You call it ROMEO. I have FOMO, fear
no,
of
I
missing out.
understand.
So
Yeah, no,
yeah, in a perfect, like, you can talk about the perfect world of this is what people should be doing, but how do you convince your readers that aren't doing that to start taking some risk off the table?
well, I think my biggest problem with my readers is once you retire, your mindset changes. You've lost your primary source of income from your job. So now you go to, oh my gosh, I can't lose this nest egg. It's got to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where my readers are vulnerable. They go to their local stockbroker, and the stockbroker has this fancy title, senior investment
wealth
counselor.
Architect. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And, you ask him what his last job was he sold used cars. But the point is, they say, oh no, we will take and give us the amount of money you want. You tell us your goals. We're going to run it through our computer, and we will give you a safe, diversified portfolio. Now, there's two fallacies for that. Number one is the purpose of the computer program is to take the investor's money and shove it into as many fee-based products as they can, okay, which is not in the client's best interest. But here's the second problem. When they start going into these mutual funds, you've got to really read the fine print that says, are these funds leveraged? So that my audience is getting that exposure to high leverage, high risk in mutual funds without even being aware of it. So I'm telling my readers, you better doggone sure know what that fund is in.
Agreed.
Or take the top 3 or 4 stocks and buy them individually, because they're having a risk they don't know about.
Well, and here's another thing I tell people, because of my previous life at Morgan Stanley, UBS, Payne Weber, and Dean Witter, I do know my way around the bond world pretty well.
Sure.
But when people are buying mutual fund bonds or closed-end bond funds, you have to be very careful how much they're leveraged, because a lot of those, for instance, closed-end bond funds are leveraged. Now, I don't give investment advice. I'm a fixed annuity person only, but I have a background in that to know that when people are just buying the surface. Same thing with annuities. I always tell people there's no urgency to buy. The urgency is to understand what you're buying. And I think that's the same thing with people right now looking for the right investments. Another thing I wanted to ask you and get your take on, anytime that we're in a perceived low interest rate environment, I think we all can say it might not be low compared to everyone else in the world, but it feels pretty darn low. And it is. That when that happens, the too good to be true products and the too good to be true pitches start coming out. What do you tell your readers about, when they contact you and say, well, listen, this investment, this guy says 6% or 12%. In fact, I'll finish with this, and then I want to hear your answer. There was just a Ponzi scheme run out of Hollywood, California, from a actor that was promising 20% returns by taking supposedly movies and selling them to Netflix or whatever the story was. What do you tell your listeners about that? Because everybody wants it to be true, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And Stan, this one you might want to comment on, but I got into it on Facebook recently. Somebody posted on Facebook about an annuity that's guaranteeing you, I don't think it was double digits, it was 8 or 9% on your money.
And it can't. Let me explain that real quick before you go.
That was what I said.
What that is, and that's a semantic word game sales pitch by some sociopath. And unfortunately, the annuity industry has a few. Anytime you see anything like 5, 6, or 7% in the annuity world, that's what's called an income rider. It's an attachment to an indexed or variable annuity that's a monopoly money in a phantom account and not real money, and you can't cash it in, and you can't peel off the interest. You can only use that lovely Jimmy Carter type growth to turn on a lifetime income stream. So I get calls every day. Hey, Stan, I just bought an 8% annuity. No, you didn't. And if they argue with me, I said, well, then call the annuity company and cash it in. But yeah, the person that they're just playing word games with people, and I think people just need to be smart out there. You don't want to be the rube at the table. And if you're asking yourself in Vegas who the rube at the table is, as I always say, it's you. And you don't want to be that. So
Well,
go forward with that and the fraud
yeah,
that's
well,
happening out there.
I saw one last night, literally, where somebody was talking about a fund that is paying 33% yield. So I go into my Schwab
Wow.
account, and
Wow.
by golly, it is paying 33% yield. They're in the metals market playing options. Okay.
That's not guaranteed, by the way, for anyone
No,
out there.
no, that's not guaranteed, nor is it guaranteed even from month to month. But you see, Stan, this goes back to the mindset, and realize now how many in the population are baby boomers. We've got to go back to the fundamental premise that once your primary source of working income has stopped, you can't take those kinds of risks that you did when, if you screwed up, you could make it back by working another 5 years or 10 years. I've seen too many of my ROMEO buddies downsize. I've seen too many of my ROMEO buddies go back to work, okay? And the fact remains is you can't take any kind of those unusual risks. If it sounds too good to be true, you're probably better off continuing to do your research, because the question I ask is, you put 10,000 bucks in it and you lose 7 of it, can you afford it?
Well, and I also tell people this, and I think that your readers will get a kick out of this when they listen to this, review this. I always tell people the only true protection you have from a sales pitch is to write down exactly how you heard the sales pitch, how you believe the product's going to perform in detail in the way that you understand it. And then it'd be very detailed. At the end, sign and date it, and then have that agent, advisor, wealth architect, master of the universe sign and date it as well. What you will find is either that pen weighs 1,000 pounds, and if they do sign it, then they own it. Otherwise, it's your word against theirs. But if it's going to be your word against theirs, have it in writing. And I call that in my world, my annuity statement of understanding. But it really is an investor statement of understanding. So if you're using an advisor or a master of the universe, RIA, or someone's managing money, and they pitch you something that's too good to be true, use that as a way to protect yourself. And I always tell people, don't trust anyone. Trust the contract. Trust the actual facts. And that's hard for people to do because they want a golfing buddy. They want their friend. Advisors should not be your friend. Financial experts should not be your friend. We are heart surgeons or cancer surgeons where we got to shoot it straight because it's your money and it's your retirement money. So what are people doing here, Dennis, from the standpoint of, are your readers kind of scared of the markets at these levels? What are they saying?
At this point, my readers are asking for help. Let's start with, what do you want? We want to be able to pay our bills. We want to know we can pay our bills for the duration.
Right.
We want to be able to sleep at night. And yeah, we'd like to be able to leave something to the next generation. Okay. So when you take fixed income off the table, what my readers are asking for is help. Okay. How do I navigate this minefield? And I want to throw something in about minefield. I read something in the Charlotte Observer recently that said we normally get a major tax change or bill every 10 years.
Right.
We now had 3 in the last 2 years and may have multiple bills coming this year. So that my readers are not only experiencing change, but it's just like, how many bailouts have we had in the last 2 years? The rate of change is accelerating. And so what they're asking for is, the goal hasn't changed. I'm not working anymore. I've got to be able to pay the bills. How can I navigate this minefield safely and balance this whole thing so that I can enjoy what's left of my retirement? And that problem's not going away.
Not going to hold you to this, but do you think interest rates will move significantly up, significantly down, or stay kind of in the same range in the near term 1 or 2 years? And it won't hold you to it. This isn't investment advice. This is me and Dennis talking. What do you think?
I think it's inevitable that our government will do 2 things. They will go to 0 interest rates, Then when they go to zero interest rates, we're going to find digital currency. And then once they have digital currency, because you go to zero interest rates or worse, negative, people start hiding their cash under the mattress, okay?
Right.
And the government will not want competition. So, if you're investing in Bitcoin, you better understand that I personally, this is opinion, I'm
Sure.
not as an advisor,
Sure.
I personally think that governments throughout the world within 10 years are probably going to outline all kinds of digital currency. And we're going to see, negative interest. Do you realize like half the bonds in Europe now are negative interest rates?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, how low can it go? And I'm like, zero or negative.
Negative.
Here's the interesting part about where we are at a country, as a country right now. We printed all these trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So the government is not motivated to raise interest rates on themselves. It'd be like me and you raising our mortgage rate just because we want to. If we don't want, we don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. So there's no incentive for them to raise interest rates. They painted themselves into a corner. And if I'm up there, I'm probably bullying the Fed to go low just so that my interest payments aren't as high. That dog won't hunt long term, as they say in the South. But what's the government going to do right now, and except just raise taxes and try any type of legal confiscation of people's money? What are they doing here?
We've covered those two. The other one is historically, governments have tried to inflate their way out of debt so that they're paying their obligations with cheaper dollars.
Right.
And they made a major change. Remember the Fed said they were targeting 2%?
Yes.
Now they've changed it. They say, well, we want it to average 2%, but they don't tell you how they're going to keep score. They don't tell you how long over a period of time.
Yeah.
So if we get 5 or 6 or Jimmy Carter type inflation, well, yeah, but we're averaging it. So that the reality is, let's go back to what you started. We have $28 trillion now. I think we just hit for our national debt. And that's not the unfunded obligations like Social Security.
Correct.
Figure 1% of $28 trillion. If our interest rates went from the 1% today back to the 6%, the federal budget would double because the interest rates would be so high. The federal government isn't going to do that. So we just have to learn to live with it and work around it. And Americans are ingenious people. The class that you're dealing with and my readers, they're looking for help to try to figure out how to do it.
Right.
And they will, but a lot of people that don't are going to get hurt.
Yeah, and that's my fear, is that people are too long in the markets. They have long positions, or there's too much risk, or they're leveraged. A lot of people are using leverage and margin, and they really don't understand it. It just seems like it's the thing to do, and it is in a raging bull market. So I'm working with the same people that are your readers, which are people that are either thinking about retirement or already retired, and trying to figure out how to navigate through these, really what I call blue water. We've never seen this. There's no tick data that we can go back and say, well, the last time we printed and we're 28 trillion in debt, this is what happened. Or the last time that all the markets globally were interconnected, this is what happened. Or the last time that we're going to cryptocurrency, et cetera, this is what happened. And getting back to the cryptocurrency, I think that governments are going to embrace cryptocurrency because it's going to be the most efficient way to collect taxes, and no one's going to be able to hide the money, because the blockchain technology, they're going to embrace it. And I just saw today at the time of this taping, the first, I think, cryptocurrency is going public. And so we're going to see some things happen. Who knows if Bitcoin's going to be the winner? Would you agree with this statement? And let me ask you this. At the end of the day, I cannot see any form or fashion that the government and the top 5 banks in this country are not going to control, or at least be a huge part of cryptocurrency. What's your opinion on that?
My opinion is you're right, but I want to add a caveat.
Okay.
The Fed chairman recently said that the Federal Reserve is looking into a cryptocurrency. Right now, we're in a world cryptocurrency race with China. Okay.
Right.
So that while I agree with you on cryptocurrency, it will be government controlled cryptocurrency,
I agree with that.
eliminating, but even then they're talking now, and I recently wrote an article about it, that it may have an expiration date. So you have a cryptocurrency balance in your account, it's going to go down, which is basically negative interest rates, encouraging you to spend.
Wow.
And the fact is that the government's going to know every dime you spend, where you
Absolutely.
spend it,
Yep.
punish their political enemies and reward their political friends. So yeah, I'm with you on cryptocurrency. I just don't think it's going to be independent from the government.
I don't either. And I always tell people, you know, Bitcoin may or may not be the winner. But remember when the internet first got going a long time ago, you had places like MySpace, AOL.com, and they were not the winners. So just because you're first to the party doesn't mean that they're, you know, you're going to be the winner. And in this case, it might be Bitcoin, might not. But I do truly believe that the governments plural, all over the country, but let's just talk about ours. They are going to be involved. They're going to be integrally involved, and the 5 big banks are going to be involved.
Absolutely.
And just people get used to it. It's getting ready to happen. And that's one of the things that 5 years from now, I think cryptocurrency, in whatever form it ends up being, is going to be the norm. Dollar bills. I mean, there's sometimes I go out and I'm travel all the time and I try to pay for things with cash and they don't accept cash. Do you think cash is going away?
That's eventually, I think they're going to outlaw cash because that becomes competition to their government digital currency.
Correct.
But what's sad to me is I wrote an article about it where the Chinese are testing their cryptocurrency, and they gave certain citizens an amount of cryptocurrency to spend. The interview, and one of them said, "Well, I don't care if the government knows where I spend every dime. You know, I'm willing to give up a little bit of my sovereignty for convenience."
Oof.
And my answer, if that's a little bit of sovereignty, what's a lot?
That's a slippery slope definition I've ever heard.
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of the concern. It
Right.
will end up giving the government through the banks. The banks are going to be the enabler, just like the banks now are enabling the deficit spending through the Fed.
Correct.
Okay. And the banks are going to be the enabler, but that's going to enable them to control every facet of people's lives. And, you know, I tell my readers, those are things at this point we don't have any control over. What we have is control over where we invest our nest egg, okay? Because I also believe something else happened. I have friends that live in Argentina, and Argentina's been through this thing a half a dozen times.
Sure.
And eventually the citizens develop a system of barter to replace the currency that becomes outlawed. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we always do.
But it ain't going to be pretty, Stan. I think I'm with you.
No, it's the sausage being made. It's going to be ugly.
Big brother.
Yeah.
Big brother.
Some final thoughts as we kind of wrap it up. Where do you know, COVID's been a weird one, you know, and it's continuing to be a weird one. What's your outlook right here from the standpoint of just the country, the markets, and where we're at?
I think COVID has certainly had a major impact on shutting down our economy. I did an interview yesterday with a very well-known economist who has a newsletter, and forgetting the health side, he made some interesting predictions I hadn't thought of, in that COVID basically shut down the imported goods, okay? So that'll enable the US manufacturers to pick up market share and raise their prices in the process. Mm-hmm. And his contention is when the COVID restrictions come off, our ports are already starting to see and being flooded with imports. So now we're going to have a market challenge where they're fighting over market share. And his contention is that that's going to delay inflation where prices are going through the roof because the import of the foreign cheaper goods and the US manufacturers not wanting to lose share. But eventually, we're going to come back. And a lot of those people that lost their jobs during COVID, that's one of the things this economist said. Companies are looking for ways to offshore jobs again, and they are looking for automation. So I think the long-term impact of the COVID is going to be more than just health. We're going to have a lot of people in the workforce that are going to be the victims of that when it comes to the job market. Now, that may not be where you wanted me to go, but I thought he made some good points.
I think that's
I hadn't thought of it.
No, I think that's fantastic. I do encourage people to go to Miller on the Money, all one, no spaces, milleronthemoney.com, and sign up for Dennis's free, and I repeat, free newsletter. And he's got all kinds of offers and downloads and charts, and I mean, it's a no-brainer. Go there, and one of the reasons I wanted him to be on is just for my listeners and viewers to get to know Dennis if you didn't already know him. He's well-known and well-respected in the industry because he's a straight shooter, and he really does have compassion and empathy for the retiree out there or the person struggling to figure it out and try to filter out all the noise. This isn't the last time we'll have Dennis on, but hey, Dennis, I really appreciate you being on Fun with Annuities, and I hope to have you back soon.
Well, Stan, thanks for inviting me. There's a whole millions and millions of baby boomers out there, and they played by the rules. They worked hard. They did it right. They saved their money. They deserve a better shake. And, you and I and a lot of folks are trying to help make sure that at least we can, as you said, navigate the blue waters.
Absolutely. Well said. Listen, everybody, listeners and podcast people viewing it on Fun with Annuities YouTube channel and the podcast listeners, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Fun with Annuities. Thanks for listening to Fun with Annuities. Please hit the subscribe button and make sure to go to my site at theannuityman.com, where you can run your own SPIA, DIA, and QLAC quotes and see a live feed of the best MIGA fixed rates in the country, and even get indexed and income rider quotes as well. You can also sign up for my 6 Annuity Owner's Manual books, and I'll ship them for free and under no obligation. I also encourage you to schedule a one-on-one call with me, Stan the Annuity Man, so we can have a full discussion of your specific situation. It will be the best brutally factual and truthful advice you will ever get, and that's one guarantee you should definitely take advantage of. So join me next time for the #1 annuity podcast on the planet, Fun with Annuities.